take you through how to create some framing for your basement. All right, so say you've got your floor plan all mapped out. What you want to do is um, start to create the base of your frame using a 2x4. And remember that a 2x4 is really 1.5 by 3.5. Not that it matters so much here, but just keep that in mind. So we're going to have a base. We're going to make that a component. And then I'm going to create what's called a stud. It's basically a 2x4 vertically placed upwards from your base. I'm going to make that a component as well. And then we're going to copy and paste several copies of that going across to create our frame. And they should be, by law, should be that these vertical studs are maximum 16 to 24 inches apart from each other. It doesn't mean that you can't have them less than that. Okay, so you can have them. It might happen that as you get to the corner of your room, you need to put another piece of 2x4 as a stud that's maybe only 6 or 8 inches away from your previous one, and that's fine too. You just can't go over that 24 inches. Okay. All right. So to begin, I'm just gonna hit R on my keyboard for rectangle, and I'm going to create a 2x4 here. So let's just go 2, 4. Although remember, it is 1.5 by 3.5 in actuality. All right, and sorry about that. Actually, let's undo that. I'm going to create my base first, not my stud. So again, let's create another one. And now typically a 2x4, let's say, it doesn't matter, but let's say it's a 12-foot piece of 2x4. So I'm going to make it 12 feet, so 12 apostrophe, and then 4, comma 4 for 4 inches. Notice I don't have to put the inch mark for inches because it just, SketchUp recognizes if you don't put anything there that it's just inches. Okay, so there you go. You have our rectangle there. Now to select that object, because I want to make it a component before I pull on it or I raise it up, I'm just going to start selecting. So I'll start with the face, and I'm holding Shift on my keyboard to select multiple items here. Okay, there it is. I've selected it all, and I'm going to right click, make component. Let's just call this my 12-foot base. Okay, and now if I want to push pull this base up, I need to double click in the component, press P on my keyboard for push pull, and I'm going to raise it 2 inches or 1.5 inches in actuality, okay, as the base part of my frame. What I'm then going to do now is exit out of this component. So I'm just going to choose my select tool and double click in the blank space there. And if I orbit around just so I can see the very front here, pan across, I'm now going to create another component for my vertical stud. So I'm going to draw another rectangle. This time it's going to just be a 4-inch by 2-inch. You can see on the bottom right, I mean, you might be wondering, should it be 2 and then comma 4 or 4 comma 2? Well, I know that I drew this 2x4 to be 4 inches. So you can see that the second number there must be 4 inches, right? That must be the 4. So it must be 2 comma 4. All right, there's my 2x4. And now again, I'm going to use the select tool and maybe zoom in a bit so I can see. Okay, I'm going to select the face, hold Shift, select my edges. Okay, and right click, make component, vertical component. Or, sorry, vertical stud. All right, double click there and press P on your keyboard for push pull, and let's just assume that our ceiling is going to be roughly 8 feet tall. So I'm going to pull that and just type 8 apostrophe for 8 feet. Okay, and again, I'm going to use the select tool and just double click outside of that component. Okay, and let me zoom out so I can see what I'm working with here. Okay. All right, so next what I'm going to do is copy this vertical stud over X amount of times. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to hit the move, or actually first I'm going to hit the select tool and select, only click once on the component. Don't double click it, just click it once because I just want to move it. Hit the move button and grab that front corner. I guess it doesn't matter which corner you grab there. And what you want to do is hold Alt. If you're on a Mac, hold Alt, and on a PC I believe it's Control. It's either Control or Alt also on a PC, just double check that. But when you press it, you can see that there's a plus sign that pops up. I'm not sure if you saw that plus sign there. Here, let me do that again. Okay, as I'm hovering my move tool, if I press Alt, you can see that little plus sign showed up. And now when I click, I can actually make multiple copies. Now I want to make this 18 inches away. So I'm going to just pull that out there and then now type 18. Okay, now without typing anything on my keyboard, okay, if I press X and then let's say I press 6, that means I want to make 6 copies in total, all right, including the one I just made, So once I move it 18 inches, don't click anything, just type times and then however many you want and then hit enter. And you can see that 6 copies were made, including the first one that I had moved. Okay, so that's a pretty useful tool there. That X and then the number of copies you want to make. That'll make your room, your basement, get framed up pretty quickly. And then just remember that you want, again, that the corners of each room that you have should have a 2x4 for each corner. So there should be another 2x4 like here, for example, starting there, okay, and then out this way. All right, so something like 2, 4. All right, something like that. So there should be 2x4s butted up against each other for each corner of a room, because remember, you're going to be putting the drywall up against there, and you want it to be screwed in at its ends for sure. Okay, so make sure you do that. Now, if you're a little bit off there, I mean, it's okay. You know, if you're an inch away or whatever it is, like it doesn't have to be exact, but just keep that in mind. Okay. And then last thing, what you want to do is select this bottom component. Oh, and actually before I do that, is if there's ever a time that you want to edit one of these studs but not edit the rest, because what happens is if I try to edit this stud here, okay, watch what happens. All right, so if I push pull this one, it actually moves all of them. And you may not want that. You may not want to move all of them. Maybe you just want to move one of them. Okay? So what you do in that case, sorry, I'm not using a mouse here. It's a little bit more challenging. What you do in that case is select the stud that you want to make unique. Select it once, right click, and hit make unique. So now when I double click into this component and I push pull, it should only move that one stud and not the rest. All right, so that's select by clicking on it once, right click and make unique. All right, and last thing, okay, is to move our base up to the top here, right? You're gonna have, I mean, obviously these 2x4s have to be screwed into something at the top. So we're gonna select this bottom component, and then let's just zoom in so I can see this corner. All right. And what you want to do now is you want to hit the move tool and you want to pick this bottom corner because it's the bottom corner that's going to be butted up against the 2x4 at the top. So I'm going to hold Alt because I want to make a copy of it, and then click and drag it up. Now you can see you can't really drag it up on my screen. You can't see the top. But with SketchUp, all you have to do is if I hit zoom or Z on my keyboard here, I can actually zoom out. And then when I hit escape on my keyboard again, it goes back to the part that I was moving. So that's just hitting escape after zooming. All right, and there it is. And let's take a look at how it looks. All right, and so you'll be able to get through that fairly quickly with some of these tips.